After hearing everything that has been going on with Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, I couldn't help but sit down and really process how surprising, yet not entirely shocking this whole situation feels. When you think about two people who have spent nearly 2 decades together in Hollywood of all places, it almost sounds like some kind of miracle. Because let's be honest, we've seen marriages in that world collapse in 2 years, 5 years, sometimes even just a couple months. And then here comes Nicole and Keith, going strong for 20 years, presenting themselves as that rare couple who might actually beat the Hollywood curse. That's why the news of their separation hits so differently. It's not just another breakup headline. It feels like the end of an era for a lot of people who admired them and maybe even used their marriage as proof that real love can survive the spotlight. But as with every breakup, once you start looking closer, the cracks that seemed invisible in public suddenly start to show, and it turns out there might have been more going on beneath the surface than any of us realized. Now, people are saying that the split technically happened back in June, but it was kept quiet for months until it just couldn't be hidden anymore, and that makes sense to me. Celebrities, especially ones as high profile as Nicole and Keith, don't usually just rush to let the world know the second something in their private life changes. They try to control the narrative, they try to process it themselves, and they want to protect their kids from the media storm. But even with all that, there's no denying that once rumors started circulating about Keith being spotted with another woman, the conversation took a much sharper turn. Because it's one thing to hear about a couple growing apart after years together, but the moment cheating whispers start, people automatically take sides. And let's be real, Keith's reputation in this relationship has always been a little complicated because of his past struggles with addiction and the way Nicole has been seen standing by him. So for this to now flip into a story where he's the one moving on first and maybe even stepping out before things were official, it feels like a gut punch to fans who viewed him as the one who should have been endlessly grateful to Nicole for keeping their marriage alive. But then again, I can't ignore how this isn't exactly a simple case of one person being the villain and the other being the victim. If you've followed Nicole Kidman's career over the last decade or so, you've probably noticed how she's been taking on more and more intense roles that involve romantic or even intimate storylines with much younger men. And while obviously that's just acting, for someone like Keith, who's on the road constantly touring and already battling the distance that comes with their separate careers, watching his wife play those roles over and over again could absolutely stir up feelings of jealousy or resentment. Imagine sitting down to watch your wife in a movie and she's passionately kissing some actor half her age, and then a week later she's jetting off to Europe to shoot another film without you. Sure, it's part of the business, but does that make it easier to handle at home? Probably not. I think that might have been eating away at him in ways he never admitted publicly. And on Nicole's side, it doesn't seem like she wanted this split. Multiple reports suggest she was still trying to fight for her marriage even when Keith had already mentally checked out. She was posting anniversary tributes, wearing her ring, talking in interviews about how deeply in love she still felt. And honestly, that makes the whole situation sadder, because if one person still wants to hold on and the other has already moved on, that creates this painful imbalance. You can see the effort of one partner, but if the other isn't meeting them halfway, it becomes inevitable that things will collapse. And let's not forget, they have 2 kids together, still in their teens, which complicates everything. Teenagers already have enough to navigate without their parents splitting up so publicly, and I can only imagine how much attention they'll get at school, on social media, everywhere. That's the cruel part of celebrity divorces. The kids never asked for any of this, yet they end up right in the spotlight anyway. Another piece of this puzzle that really stuck with me was the whole Portugal situation. Nicole applied for a residency permit there, planning a life in this exclusive, gorgeous coastal community, but Keith wasn't on her paperwork. That was the first sign for me that something wasn't right. Couples who are fully invested in each other don't make such major life decisions separately, and the fact that his name was missing raised questions instantly. His team tried to cover it up, saying he'd apply later because he was on tour, but honestly, that explanation never felt solid. It seemed more like a quick excuse to hide the truth, which was that they were already living separate lives and weren't making future plans together anymore. I think that was the moment Nicole herself might have realized this marriage was slipping away, even if she didn't want to admit it publicly yet. Now, I know some people are saying Keith has been seeing another woman, and others are pointing to blind items that claim Nicole may not have been entirely innocent either. There were whispers about her getting a little too cozy with co-stars, spending time with her bodyguard in ways that didn't seem purely professional, and even connecting with Simon Baker. Do I believe all of it? Not necessarily, because blind items can be messy and exaggerated. But where there's smoke, there's usually at least a little fire. And if both of them were entertaining outside attention, that tells me the marriage had been emotionally fractured for a while. You don't suddenly go from being madly in love to cheating. Usually, it's years of distance, lack of communication, and unmet needs that push people to start seeking something elsewhere. On top of that, let's not ignore Keith's friends reportedly knowing for a long time that this breakup was inevitable. That part honestly breaks my heart a little. Because if you're in a marriage and your partner's entire circle already expects it to fail, it means there's been tension and unhappiness going on for years behind closed doors. I think Nicole might have been in denial, still hoping love and loyalty could fix what was broken, while Keith was already preparing himself emotionally for a life without her. And once that happens, once one person decides they're done, it's very difficult to turn things back around. It's like trying to revive a flame that's already burned out. It doesn't matter how much fuel you throw at it if the spark is gone. One thing that also makes this story more layered is Keith's history with addiction. Nicole was there in the early years when he went to rehab, standing by him when a lot of women might have walked away. That created a narrative that she was the rock in the relationship, the one keeping everything steady while he battled his demons. So now, seeing him be the one to walk away, maybe even for someone else, feels like a reversal of roles that nobody expected. If anything, people assume Nicole would be the one to eventually get tired of carrying the weight, not Keith leaving her. And that twist is why this divorce feels so shocking. It challenges the version of their marriage we all thought we knew. Then there's the angle of Nicole's workaholic nature. She has been constantly on film sets, jumping from project to project, sometimes spending months in different countries. Keith, meanwhile, has been touring, living the life of a musician. Both of them built careers that demand constant travel and separation, and after 20 years of that, it seems like they just stopped finding ways to reconnect in between. Maybe in the early years they had rules about never being apart for more than 2 weeks, but those rules probably fell apart once their schedules got too hectic. And once you stop prioritizing that time together, resentment builds, distance grows, and suddenly your marriage is more about appearances than real connection. That's why, even though it's sad, I can see how this ended up happening. Fame doesn't just test relationships, it practically dares them to fail. What's interesting is how their public image played such a huge role in masking the reality. Whenever we saw them, it was usually on a red carpet, all smiles, looking glamorous, whispering sweet things in interviews. And yet, outside of those staged moments, it sounds like they barely spent real time together anymore. That's the dangerous illusion of celebrity couples. They sell us this picture-perfect love story for the cameras, but behind the scenes, it might be crumbling for years. And we don't see it until it's too late. Honestly, I think Nicole was trying to keep that illusion alive longer than Keith cared to. She was still wearing the ring, still posting sweet messages, still doing interviews about their date nights, even when things were already broken. To me, that shows she was holding on to hope longer than she should have. Another detail that stood out to me was Keith's reaction during that radio interview when he was asked about Nicole's romantic roles with younger actors like Zac Efron. The fact that he hung up shows how sensitive and insecure that topic made him. He couldn't even laugh it off or say it's just acting. He shut down completely. That tells me those roles genuinely bothered him, maybe more than he ever admitted publicly. And if that resentment kept building every time she signed on to a new project like that, it's easy to see how he'd eventually detach emotionally from the marriage. That doesn't justify moving on with someone else if that's what happened, but it does explain where his mindset may have been. Now, whether or not Keith already has another woman in his life, I do think he's emotionally out of the marriage, and that's the part Nicole probably finds hardest to accept. Because she invested years in trying to make it work, forgiving past struggles, raising their kids, balancing her career, and now she's left standing as the one who still wanted to try while he was ready to walk away. That dynamic creates this heartbreaking picture of someone who gave it their all but couldn't stop the inevitable. And while I know people will debate whether Nicole cheated too, or whether Keith is the bad guy here, to me, the truth is that both of them probably contributed to this ending. It wasn't one single betrayal. It was years of neglect, miscommunication, jealousy, and distance piling up until there was no path back. At the end of the day, what really makes me reflect is how even the most glamorous, picture-perfect Hollywood marriages can crumble under the same pressures everyday couples face. The only difference is, for them, it all happens with millions of people watching, speculating, and judging. And that spotlight doesn't make healing any easier. I think Nicole and Keith both loved each other at one point very deeply, but love isn't always enough to carry a marriage across decades. You need time, effort, compromise, and a willingness to put your partner first, even when careers or temptations try to get in the way. And maybe somewhere along the way they both stopped doing that consistently. That's why this story, as sad as it is, also feels like a reminder that no couple is untouchable, no matter how perfect they look on the outside. And as much as I hate to see this happen, I can't help but wonder what comes next for both of them. Nicole has always had this magnetic presence, and I could easily see her finding another high-profile partner eventually. People forget she was once married to Tom Cruise before Keith, so she's no stranger to high-profile relationships. And Keith, well, he might dive deeper into his music, maybe lean into bachelor life for a while, or maybe this rumored other woman becomes something more serious. Either way, it's going to be fascinating to see how they both move forward individually after 20 years of being tied together. For now though, I think the important thing is recognizing that behind all the drama, there's still a family going through something painful, and at the end of the day, that's what really matters.